Canada, apparently they're throwing tariffs on manatee meat and bovine semen, which means The View is very unhappy.
Oh, it's not even that. And The View, you don't need to find Trumpers. You need to fire your race baiters.
Yeah.
You need to fire the two races. You've had people. You had a McCain on there. You've had people on there before, and you ran them off. So the racist ones who want to stick to this, Whoopi and Sonny, and was it Bette Midler? What's her name? Yeah, broke-ass Bette Midler. Fire them and bring people in. Maybe you could get McCain to come back. She was a Republican, but every show and every break, she was nearly in tears because she was being attacked.
What happens when Whoopi Goldberg opens her mouth and accidentally walks into a sarcasm buzzsaw named Greg Gutfeld, with Tyrus cheering from the sidelines? Chaos. Pure, glorious, meme-worthy chaos. One moment she's lecturing the nation, the next she's mentally packing her bags for a vacation from public opinion. Spoiler alert, it's not just her arguments that collapse. Buckle up, because this isn't a talk show meltdown, it's a comedic car crash you can't look away from.
Happy Wednesday, everyone. Well, not if you're Whoopi Goldberg, a.k.a. Karen Johnson. Yeah, who knew Whoopi was a Karen? I thought that was only for white people, like Toyota Priuses and skiing. Roll it, Francis.
Good morning and welcome to The View. You all saw the news. Whoopi will be back here in 2 weeks. Okay?
It's so cute when one of their side gets punished. They sulk like they ran out of raw cookie dough in the green room.
Whoopi Goldberg, the self-appointed philosopher queen of daytime television, has once again done what only she can do: elevate casual political nonsense into a full-blown interpretive dance of delusion, self-importance, and galaxy-brain contradictions. It's not just commentary, it's performance art for the deeply confused. And in a stunning twist of irony, this time she managed to get absolutely shredded, verbally and intellectually, by two people who weren't even on the show.
Yeah, ABC suspended Whoopi for 2 weeks because she said the Holocaust had nothing to do with race. She said this on a show called The View, which makes everything about race. Except now.
The Holocaust isn't about race. No. It's not about race.
Ethnicity.
It's about
a different race.
But it's not about race. It's not about race.
What is it about?
Because it's about man's inhumanity to man.
Yeah, that's heroically stupid. Even for The View.
That's right. Whoopi took a cosmic L from Greg Gutfeld and Tyrus without them ever setting foot near her hallowed table of daytime drama. If that doesn't scream legacy and decline, nothing does. Let's back it up a bit. Picture your standard episode of The View where facts are optional, accountability is extinct, and outrage is the default setting. Whoopi, perched atop her throne like a daytime oracle of delusional grandeur, was draped in self-righteous fury as if she'd just been asked to host a bake sale for basic civility.
So the problem is that you have to go after the racist people. And if the CEO goes, you know what, I'm not going to allow a woman on my show, or man, that will go after white America and talk about them like dogs. That doesn't represent our ideals or values for anyone. And get rid of those people, and this will clear up real quick. So do you have to actually look in the mirror and clean up your own backyard and get the racist people out? Because that's who you allowed in. You allowed black racists on TV who could just go all day and say anything about white people. And I guess lo and behold, they forgot that there's a lot of people at home, white people at home during the day, that are not watching your show anymore. So just clean it up.
Yeah, you know, Emily.
She launched into one of her usual operatic tirades, this time about how democracy is apparently being held hostage by anyone who dares to disagree with her latest emotional TED Talk. So, you know, a typical Tuesday in Whoopi land. And then the internet happened. Somewhere far from the clutches of The View's clapping audience, Greg Gutfeld and Tyrus dropped one of their usual late-night truth grenades. No glitter, no cackling background panel, just raw sarcasm, facts, and that delicious Gutfeld brand of deadpan mockery that hits harder than Whoopi's coffee after someone challenges her worldview.
Yesterday on The View, otherwise known as Hell's DMV, Whoopi Goldberg asked how much different are the values of the Trump administration from the Taliban.
We have a leader who has repeatedly demeaned women, wants to defund organizations that benefit women, calling on the media to shut up, specifically wants to give preferential treatment based on religion. Are these values really much different than the Taliban's?
Wow. Talk about groundbreaking to actually hear a celebrity say something mean about the Taliban. How dare they compare them to Trump? The Taliban should sue. Guess they ran out of Hitler analogies. So as they bash the president, I'm reminded how entertainers rarely express any rage over any strand of misogynist Islamism. If they did, we might take their rage toward Trump seriously.
Greg, of course, didn't bother naming Whoopi. He didn't need to. He simply pointed out the hilarity of celebrity commentators who have been wrong more consistently than a broken weather app. You know, the ones who demand everyone educate themselves right after mispronouncing Ukraine. Meanwhile, Tyrus, towering like a WWE bouncer at a Mensa meeting, gave a metaphor so savage it basically did to Whoopi's credibility what Thanos did to half the universe. What's fascinating is that none of this happened on The View. And yet, Whoopi responded as if it were a personal insult sent to her inbox, hand-delivered by logic itself. She huffed. She puffed. She summoned the ancient spirits of Hollywood indignation. She stared directly into the camera with the conviction of someone who just discovered Twitter last week and thought Gutfeld was a spice. This was more than a collapse. It was a spontaneous combustion of ego and insecurity. Whoopi, ever the martyr for celebrity intellect, couldn't help but project her disdain outward like a malfunctioning confetti cannon. And let's be clear, this isn't new. Whoopi doesn't engage in debates. She issues decrees. When facts push back, she doesn't counter. She claps, slowly, passive-aggressively, like she's applauding her own courage for not storming off the set mid-tantrum. And when the clapping doesn't work, she deploys the ultimate defense, performative exhaustion.
Check it out on The View, all right? Talking about Latinos. Watch this, Tyrus.
Latinos in Texas, a district that's 97% Latino, went 75 percentage points for Donald Trump. Why?
Misogyny.
It's on the border.
It's
the border
misogyny.
crisis is on their doorstep.
So
and they were begging people to care about it for years. We
Misogyny
need to
and
take some
sexism.
lessons.
That's what that was.
Misogyny and sexism.
Sure, all that, and the price of butter. Sonny gets the game ball. If it wasn't for her, if it wasn't for her asking that question, it might have been a closer election.
Ah, yes, the infamous sigh, the ancient art of letting out a theatrical, exaggerated exhale as though the sheer weight of other people's opinions is just too much for her saintly shoulders. It's the universal sign for, I've lost the argument, but I'm pretending you're beneath me. Now, the internet? Oh, the internet had a field day. Twitter turned into an open mic roast session. YouTube comment sections looked like group therapy for people traumatized by daytime TV. Even Reddit, which usually only unites to obsess over AI and weird pasta recipes, found common ground in mocking Whoopi's latest attempt at political commentary. People weren't just laughing, they were documenting, clipping moments, creating memes. The image of Whoopi glaring down the barrel of a camera while failing to articulate why people with opposing opinions are the real problem, it practically begged to be turned into a t-shirt. And somewhere out there, an Etsy shop is probably doing just that. But let's take a quick trip down Whoopi's memory lane of televised wisdom. Remember the time she defended a convicted director by arguing about semantics rather than morality? Or when she seemed genuinely confused about the difference between political disagreement and actual violence? Or when she turned the concept of free speech into a game of emotional twister where only she got to spin the dial? That's Whoopi's brand.
But when oh no, nothing really comes to mind. I was like, cha-ching. Listen, they're bitter, they're angry, they're entitled. They also should be. This should have been a reset for everyone who pushed lies and misinformation for the last. They call them Hitler. They call these things. America rejected them, and instead of coming back and saying we lied, they instead are now doubling down. So let her keep doing it, because if she keeps that up, we're going to keep getting the Senate and probably the House and the White House, because people see right through your lies. So keep doing what you're doing. Game ball to Sonny.
Inflated certainty with a sprinkle of selective outrage and just a dash of self-congratulation. It's like if a TED Talk and a Facebook rant had a baby, and that baby got a daytime Emmy. Meanwhile, Greg and Tyrus, they didn't even break a sweat. They just existed. They breathed. They made sense. That's the thing. Whoopi knows. Somewhere under the layers of carefully curated sanctimony, She realizes that her hot takes have aged like milk in the Arizona sun. But instead of reevaluating, she doubles down. Because in the house that The View built, being loud is better than being right. Let's not ignore the stunning irony of Whoopi pretending to be the voice of the American everywoman while sitting on a multi-million-dollar throne surrounded by fellow elites, sipping decaf injustice and sprinkling it with victimhood. It's like watching a yacht club discuss minimum wage. And if you thought this little ego implosion was a one-off, think again. Whoopi has a full library of collapses. There was the time she scolded the entire country for being misinformed, right before she misquoted basic economic data, or the moment she took a condescending jab at political moderates, all while flip-flopping harder than a fish on a hot sidewalk.
Sausage maker Johnsonville is recalling more than 42,000 pounds of pork sausage for possible contamination with plastic fibers. Fortunately, authorities were able to track all 42,000 pounds to a single location in New York City.
In fact, the Whoopi meltdown is becoming an American tradition. It starts with a smug smirk, then a vaguely political monologue wrapped in emotions and buzzwords, followed by clapping from the studio audience who are just happy to be indoors. And then finally, the collapse, the verbal implosion when facts, or Gutfeld or Tyrus, gently nudge the fantasy. But here's what really sealed it. After Gutfeld and Tyrus shared their thoughts, not on Whoopi, but on the state of celebrity-led misinformation, Whoopi responded with a subtle mix of bitterness and injured pride. Her energy screamed, "How dare anyone challenge the Church of Viewdom? Don't they know I was in Sister Act?" It's the performative victimhood that gets you. She's not just wrong, she's wounded. As if having her ideas dismantled by people who still know what satire is amounts to emotional violence. That's the grift. Pretend every critique is a personal attack, and suddenly you're no longer just wrong. You're brave. But bravery isn't misinforming millions while patting yourself on the back. Bravery is being able to admit when you're out of your depth. Whoopi? She's building a submarine in the kiddie pool?
It's not even that. In The View, you don't need to find Trumpers. You need to fire your race baiters.
Yeah.
You need to fire the two races. You've had people. You had a McCain on there. You've had people on there before, and you ran them off. Mm-hmm. So the racist ones who want to stick to this, Whoopi and Sonny, and was it Bette Midler? What's her name? Yeah, broke-ass Bette Midler. Fire them and bring people in. Maybe you could get McCain to come back. She was a Republican, but every show and every break, she was nearly in tears because she was being attacked.
And Gutfeld? He knows exactly what he's doing. He doesn't even need to yell. He just drops punchlines like anvils. Tyrus chimes in with metaphors so brutally accurate, they probably have their own body count. Together, they cut through the fog of Hollywood hysteria like a chainsaw through tofu. Their brilliance lies in restraint. They didn't rush on to The View. They didn't shout across studios. They simply pointed out that the emperor isn't wearing clothes, and the emperor responded by hosting a segment about how offended she was at being seen naked. This wasn't a debate. It was a drive-by dismantling. And the most poetic part? Whoopi collapsed under the weight of her own self-importance. Greg and Tyrus weren't even aiming at her. They were aiming at the absurdity she represents, and like a moth to a flame, she leapt in screaming. It's a masterclass in accidental self-ownage. A woman so determined to be relevant that she inserted herself into a criticism she was never directly part of, then melted down on live TV like a candle made of hypocrisy. Of course, her loyal co-hosts rallied behind her. They always do. They formed a circle of verbal incense, chanting affirmations like, "You're so brave," and "Thank you for using your voice," and the classic, "We love you, Whoopi."
Their brains are small. But who's the dumbest one of all? True, none of them are in Mensa, but who's the most densa? Perhaps it's Sonny who mastered the art of making idiots look smart. Now, The View could ask a mirror who's the dumbest one of all, but there's no way that glass doesn't shatter.
It felt less like a talk show and more like a group therapy session for wounded egos. But America wasn't buying it. Social media wasn't buying it. Even some longtime viewers weren't buying it. Because at a certain point, the collapse becomes too routine to be meaningful. When every disagreement is framed as an attack and every critic is dismissed as evil, the audience starts to realize maybe the real problem is the show itself. And just when you think the circus couldn't get more absurd, we proudly enter the Hypocrisy Files, Whoopi's greatest hits of contradiction, a hall of fame so confusing it deserves its own wing in the Museum of Cognitive Dissonance. Now, let's take a quick spin through Whoopi's long, loud career of saying the exact opposite of what she said 5 minutes ago, with full confidence and absolutely no memory of previous statements. Let's start with one of her chart toppers, defending Mel Gibson. Yes, that Mel Gibson, the one who went on a hate-fueled karaoke rant against half of humanity.
So that makes Sunny Hostin, who thinks climate change caused the solar eclipse, the dumbest of them all. Because everyone knows the moon caused the eclipse, which is controlled by the View's gravitational pull. All right, Kat, did you ever see such a group? It's amazing how Joy and Whoopi became the smart ones.
For me, the most shocking thing about the conversation was how truly boring it was. They're like, well, the cicadas, they're cicadas. Okay, but it was like every 100 years. No, it's every 17 years. Do you know how many Emmys this show has?
But back then, Whoopi reassured us that Mel couldn't possibly be racist because he was nice to her. Aw, how touching. Fast forward a few years, and she's giving monologues on white privilege like she's the woke Dalai Lama. Apparently, systemic racism is very real, except when her Hollywood buddies are the ones getting caught with their hoods down. Imagine being so morally flexible you could limbo under a bar set by the International Criminal Court. But don't worry, she'll call for someone's cancellation the next time a college freshman tweets something awkward from 2010. Oh, and free speech? But when she faces blowback for one of her patented tone-deaf soliloquies, suddenly she's Rosa Parks with a makeup artist. Cancel culture, you see, is a fascist nightmare, unless it's aimed at people Whoopi doesn't like. Then it's Tuesday brunch content, which brings us to the moment of theatrical collapse, Greg Gutfeld's closing kill shot. After dissecting Whoopi's logic like a frog in a biology class taught by sarcasm itself, Gutfeld casually labels The View as a cult of grievance wrapped in a bathrobe of delusion. The crowd, by which we mean everyone outside the Manhattan zip code, goes wild. And Whoopi's response? Nothing of substance, just the same tired refrain, right-wing hate, like a broken jukebox that only plays victim symphonies. Then comes Tyrus with the finishing blow. This wasn't a debate, it was a mercy killing of bad ideas. And Whoopi? Well, she slumps back in her chair, blinking like someone who just lost a battle she didn't even realize had started. So what happens now? Will Whoopi recover? Will she reinvent herself as the queen of nuance and balanced debate? Unlikely, but she'll be back. She always is, with another take so detached from reality it might need a passport. And when that happens, Greg and Tyrus will probably shrug, laugh, and continue being relevant without even trying. Because here's the truth. Whoopi Goldberg collapsing under pressure is not a news story. It's a weekly occurrence. The real headline is that two guys with microphones and common sense can cause a media personality to unravel from hundreds of miles away. Now that's power.